My boss pulled my promotion. After 15 years of hard work saying, "You're not VP material, be grateful for the experience we gave you." So I took a competitor's VP offer 2 days later. Everything blew up. Sup Reddit. So spent 15 years being the guy everyone called when things went sideways. Turns out that was exactly why they'd never promote me. I, 43 male, spent a decade and a half as senior regional coordinator at Bridgewater Freight, being the guy everyone called when things went sideways. Blizzard shutting down mountain passes during peak shipping season? Call Cole. Wildfire smoke grounding half our fleet in the Pacific Northwest? Get Cole on the phone. Major manufacturing client threatening to walk because someone in upper management fumbled their account review? Cole will smooth it over. Don't worry about it. And I did. Every single time. Not because I was desperate for a pat on the head, but because I actually gave a damn about the work. Like last February when my boss Warren, vice president of operations, and the guy who'd been dangling my promotion for 2 years, personally promised Hartley we could handle their expanded shipping volume during their production ramp-up. He made the commitment without checking capacity, without reviewing routes, without asking anyone who actually understood logistics. I found out about it 3 days before launch, when their operations director called me directly because Warren wasn't returning his emails. I spent 72 hours rebuilding schedules, negotiating with carriers, and creating a contingency system that kept us from defaulting on a $28 million contract. Warren presented it to the board as his strategic planning. Got a bonus for it. I'd built routing systems from scratch that saved this company millions in penalty fees and operational inefficiencies. Systems that Warren couldn't explain if his life depended on it. Warren knew all of this. He'd watched me do it for years while he sat in executive meetings, taking credit for the stability I created. The man couldn't coordinate a two-car funeral without someone holding his hand, but somehow he was vice president of operations, while I held the title of senior regional coordinator. A title that sounded impressive on paper until you realized it came with all the responsibility, but none of the actual power. All the stress, but none of the compensation. All the expectations, but none of the recognition. The promotion to VP had been dangled in front of me for 2 years. 2 years of, we just need board approval, and the timing has to be right, and you're definitely next in line, Cole. I'd started documenting everything around month 6. Not because I'm paranoid, because I'm not stupid. There's a difference. Every conversation went into a folder. Every email promising next quarter got saved. Calendar invites. Performance reviews. The VP position showing up as an approved line item in budget projections. I kept it all. That Friday afternoon at 3 p.m., sitting in Warren's corner office with its fake plants and motivational posters about teamwork, I watched him deliver the news like he was reading off a grocery list. Board decided to pause the VP expansion. Economic pressures. Nobody's fault. Just the way things go sometimes. The usual corporate word salad, designed to make getting screwed over sound like a natural disaster, rather than a deliberate choice. Pause, I repeated. My voice was calm, almost friendly. I've learned that nothing unsettles people more than staying calm when they're expecting you to lose it. Warren, you told me the promotion was already approved. You sent me a calendar invite 3 weeks ago. Subject line: VP Transition Planning. Cole. I still have it. He looked caught for just a second. Like a kid who forgot his teacher actually checks homework. He recovered fast, though. Shrugged. Like I'd asked him why the vending machine was out of Snickers, instead of why 15 years of promises were being flushed down the toilet. Things happen, Cole. Priorities shift. Budgets get reallocated. We all have to adapt. Adapt. That word hit different. I'd been adapting for 15 years. Adapting to doing work 2 levels above my pay grade. Adapting to every late-night emergency the executives couldn't handle. Adapting to watching less qualified people get promoted because they played golf with the right guys or had certain other qualities Warren found valuable. I asked about compensation. If the title was delayed, surely the salary could at least be adjusted to reflect the responsibilities I'd already taken on. Warren's response came with this look on his face. Dismissive. Almost amused. You're excellent at being the guy we call, Cole. That's not executive material. The words landed like a slap. 15 years of leading through every crisis this company had faced, and apparently I was just the guy they called. Not a leader. Just reliable. We have fresh talent coming up, he continued, checking his phone mid-sentence. People with modern thinking, strategic vision. You're not entitled to a title just because you've been here a long time. Fresh talent, modern thinking, strategic vision. Every corporate buzzword that meant absolutely nothing while simultaneously meaning everything. He set his phone down, looked at me like I was wasting his time, and delivered the line that made everything click. If this isn't working for you, you can always explore other options. But if you want to stay, be grateful you have stability. Keep doing what you're doing. He stood up. Meeting over. You're not the future here, Cole. You're the infrastructure. Close the door on your way out. I looked at Warren, really looked at him, and saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't about budgets. It wasn't about timing. This was about control. If they promoted me, they'd have to pay me what I was worth. If they kept me hungry and hopeful, they could squeeze every ounce of value out of me indefinitely. And that VP seat wasn't paused. Something in my gut told me it was reserved. Something changed in me right then. Not dramatic or anything. Just this weird sense of clarity. Like I'd been looking at everything through a dirty window, and someone finally wiped it clean. Years of managing crisis situations had taught me the value of keeping your cards close. Let them think they've won. It makes the fall harder. Thank you for the update, I said, standing up. Voice calm, face neutral, giving him absolutely nothing to read. Warren nodded, probably thinking I'd swallowed it like he expected. He had no idea he'd just lit the fuse on his own career. I walked out of Warren's office and headed straight to my own. Closed the door. Sat down at my desk and started thinking about every piece of leverage I had. See, most people in my position would go home, complain to their wife, maybe start casually job hunting while continuing to show up and give their best. Because that's what we're trained to do. Be professional. Take the high road. Don't burn bridges. But bridges work both ways. And some bridges need to burn so you can stop traffic from crossing them. My phone buzzed. Text from my wife, Megan. How did it go? So excited for you. I stared at those words for a long time. Thought about my kids at home, probably wondering if Dad was going to come back with good news. Thought about my parents and the conversation we'd had last month about their prescription costs. Thought about 15 years of early mornings and late nights, and missed soccer games and promises to Megan that next year would be different. I didn't respond to her text. Not yet. I needed to think. I started opening emails I'd been ignoring for months. Recruiters, former colleagues who'd moved on to other companies, competitors who'd noticed my work at industry conferences, all of them saying variations of the same thing. You're wasting your time at Bridgewater. They don't deserve you. Come talk to us whenever you're ready. A recruiter had emailed twice in the past 3 months. Your crisis management presentation at the Denver Summit was exactly what we're looking for in our next regional director. Base salary starts at $140, full benefits, equity options. A former colleague who'd left Bridgewater 5 years ago and now ran operations at a competitor had reached out in August. Stop letting Warren take credit for your systems. We'll actually pay you what you're worth and put your name on your own work. I'd brushed them all off, every single one, because I'd believed the promise. I'd trusted that 15 years of loyalty would be rewarded with something other than a pat on the head and a suggestion to keep waiting. One email stopped me cold, 3 weeks old, sitting in my inbox like it had been waiting for exactly this moment, from Nathan. I knew the name. Everyone in freight logistics knew the name. He'd built Apex from a regional carrier into a powerhouse that was eating market share from companies 3 times their size. The guy was legendary for 2 things: operational excellence and actually treating his people like they mattered. The subject line was simple. Would you consider a conversation? I clicked it open. Cole, I've followed your work for years. Your operational strategies at Bridgewater have become reference points in our hiring and training programs. The winter logistics protocol you developed in 2019, we literally teach it to new coordinators. If you're ever open to leading at a higher level, we have a VP seat that needs someone with your instincts. No games. Just a conversation between 2 people who care about this industry. No maybes. Just a direct statement of value from someone who'd actually done his homework. I typed a response before I could talk myself out of it. Nathan, thank you for reaching out. I'm available this weekend if you still have time. Sent it. 3:38 p.m. Exactly 38 minutes after Warren told me to stop acting like I was owed something. Nathan responded within 15 minutes. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Apex headquarters. Been waiting for your yes. When I got home that night, Megan took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. The kids were in the other room, so she pulled me into the kitchen and waited. I told her everything. The meeting, Warren's shrug, the pause that wasn't really a pause, the comments about me not being leadership material. All of it. She didn't say much at first, just listened. When I was done, she asked one question. What do you want to do? I want to stop being someone's backup plan. She nodded slowly. Then do it. You've given them 15 years, Cole. They've shown you who they are. Believe them. That was it. 15 years of marriage, and she still knew exactly when to push and when to just have my back. I told her about Nathan's email, about the meeting tomorrow. Go, she said. Hear what he has to say, and keep your eyes open at work. Sometimes the truth comes out on its own when everything starts falling apart. I went to bed that night knowing I was standing at a crossroads. For the first time in 15 years, I actually slept well. Apex's headquarters looked like it belonged in a different universe than Bridgewater's outdated brick building, with its flickering fluorescent lights and carpet that hadn't been replaced since the Clinton administration. This was all glass and steel, clean lines, modern everything. The kind of place where you could tell just by walking through the lobby that things actually worked the way they were supposed to. The receptionist greeted me by name before I even introduced myself. At Bridgewater, the front desk couldn't remember my name even after 15 years. Nathan met me outside the conference room. Firm handshake, direct eye contact, zero pretense. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, but he had the presence of someone who'd earned every bit of his reputation. No fake smiles, no corporate small talk about the weather. We sat down and he opened a folder. Inside were printouts of conference presentations I'd given, a process diagram I'd shared at a regional logistics summit, articles I'd contributed to industry publications, work I'd shared because it was good work, and good work gets noticed eventually. I've studied your work for years, he said. The winter logistics protocol you presented at the 2019 Western Freight Conference? We adapted it for our own operations and cut delay penalties by 60%. The crisis management framework you published in Logistics Quarterly? Required reading for our new coordinators. You've been sharing best practices with the industry for free while Bridgewater took the credit, but they'll never give you the authority to lead because your leadership threatens theirs. People like Warren need you to stay exactly where you are, so they can keep pretending they're the ones holding things together. Direct, honest. No corporate doublespeak. I appreciated that. I appreciated. You don't know what happened yesterday, I said. Don't need to. He leaned back in his chair. I know how companies like Bridgewater treat the people who make them successful. They mistake loyalty for weakness. Let me guess. Another delay? Another excuse about timing or budgets? Maybe a suggestion to be patient? Close. Told me I'm not leadership material, just good at operations. Nathan almost smiled. Not smugly, just like someone recognizing a familiar pattern. That's not an assessment of your abilities, Cole. That's them protecting their own mediocrity. They can't promote you without exposing how little they actually contribute. He slid a folder across the table. Not a promise. Not an invitation to wait for budget approvals or board meetings. An actual contract, printed out, ready to sign. Vice President of Regional Operations. Full authority over staffing, strategy, and implementation. Salary 40% above what I was making at Bridgewater. Performance equity that would vest over 3 years. A signing bonus that nearly made me choke. And something I'd never had before. The freedom to build my team without interference from people who didn't understand the work. I read through it. Looked solid. More than solid, actually. When do you need an answer? Today would be ideal, Nathan said. But I understand if you need time to think it through. I didn't need time. I'd already spent 15 years thinking it through. I picked up the pen and signed. Nathan shook my hand. One more thing. If you know good people who deserve better than Bridgewater can give, I'm ready to hire. Good talent tends to cluster around people who treat it well. I thought about my team. The senior coordinators who'd been carrying the heaviest operational accounts for years without recognition. The specialists whose logistics solutions had saved Bridgewater hundreds of thousands while supervisors took credit. The steady, reliable people holding together technical coordination that half the management team didn't understand. I didn't make any promises. Didn't need to, because I knew something Warren had never figured out. Loyalty goes both ways. And Bridgewater was running out of one while handing out the other to people who hadn't earned either. I spent Sunday afternoon doing something I'd never done before at Bridgewater. I documented my exit properly. Most people write a 2-sentence resignation and call it a day. I wrote a transition memo. Professional. Thorough. The kind of thing that looks helpful on the surface, but actually exposes every gap you're about to leave behind. The memo covered everything. Critical operational processes I'd built and maintained. Winter routing protocols and where the documentation lived. Client escalation chains and relationship histories. System access I controlled and how to transfer it. Risk assessments for upcoming shipping seasons. Knowledge gaps that would need to be addressed. Upcoming renewals and negotiations in progress. At the end, I added one line. I'm available for consulting at $450 per hour after my notice period ends, should you need assistance with transition planning or operational continuity. I knew they wouldn't pay it, That wasn't the point. The point was creating a paper trail that showed I'd tried to help, while simultaneously making it crystal clear just how much institutional knowledge was walking out the door. Then I wrote my resignation. Professional, clean. 2 weeks' notice. Thanked them for the opportunity. Didn't mention Warren, didn't mention broken promises, didn't mention any of the reasons I was actually leaving. I sent both documents Sunday night at 11:47 p.m. Email to HR, CC to Warren, BCC to my personal account for documentation purposes. At 11:52 p.m., I got an automated email. Your Bridgewater Freight account has been disabled. 5 minutes. They'd cut my access in 5 minutes. 15 years and they couldn't wait until morning to flip the switch. That told me everything I needed to know about how they viewed me. Not as an asset. As a liability the moment I became inconvenient. Warren called my cell at 12:03 a.m. I didn't answer. He called again at 12:17 a.m. Again at 12:34 a.m. Left a voicemail that I deleted without listening to. He sent an email at 1:18 a.m. with the subject line, urgent, need to discuss immediately. I marked it as read and went to bed. Then I turned off my work phone and spent Monday morning with my family, eating pancakes and watching cartoons with the kids before heading to my first day at Apex. My first day at Apex started at 8:32 a.m. New office, clean desk, window overlooking the district. No crisis waiting for me when I walked in. No panicked voicemails from drivers stranded on mountain passes. No Warren hovering outside my door pretending he was the one keeping things functional. I'd barely logged into my system when my personal phone started buzzing. A continuous stream of notifications that told me something significant was happening at Bridgewater. The first message was a forwarded email. One of my senior coordinators had submitted his resignation at 8:07 a.m., effective in 2 weeks. He'd told me once during a brutal late-night shift, "If you ever leave, Cole, I'm right behind you. I'm only here because you make it bearable." I never thought he meant it literally. Apparently he did. 9:12 a.m. Another forward. A second coordinator's resignation. Shorter, colder, zero attempt to dress it up with professional niceties. 2 sentences. I am resigning effective in 2 weeks. Please process my final paycheck accordingly. 9:55 a.m. A third team member. His letter was the simplest. I'm grateful for the experience. It's time to grow elsewhere. 3 resignations in 2 hours. I hadn't said a word to any of them. Hadn't recruited them. Hadn't hinted. Hadn't done anything except leave. But they'd been waiting for someone to go first. My phone rang at 10:23 a.m. Warren. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I wanted to hear what angle he'd try. Cole. No greeting. Just my name like an accusation. We need to talk about what you did. Warren. 3 resignations this morning. 3 senior coordinators. HR's already asking if you spoke to them. They're adults. They made their own decisions. Hold on. Typing sounds. Muffled voices in the background. Don't play stupid. You leave Sunday night, and by Monday my entire operations team walks out? This looks bad, and you know it. I sent you a detailed transition memo. A memo. He laughed without humor. Someone knocked on his door. Not now. Cole, you think a memo covers 15 years of... Look, I'm not accusing you of anything, but this looks coordinated. I kept my voice level. If you think you have a case, file it. Don't make me escalate this. The board is furious. HR is literally in my office right now documenting everything. When they ask why this happened, I'm telling them what I saw. This looks bad, and you know it. Don't take our stuff with you. You should tell them the truth, Warren, that you had 15 years to retain the people who built your systems. His voice went colder. Stop talking like you don't get it. You walked out. You sabotaged transition. These are facts. When the board asks about operational failures, I'm making sure they understand where this came from. Is there anything else? Yeah. He paused. His phone was buzzing in the background. People talk. This follows you. You really want your name attached to this kind of exit? I documented my work, offered transition support, and moved on. If the company can't function without one person, that's a structural problem you should have addressed years ago, after everything we did for you. His voice cracked slightly. I'm trying to protect you here. Get on a call with HR. Tell them you didn't recruit anyone. Say you had no idea they were leaving. No. Cole, this can get ugly. Real ugly. Don't say I didn't warn you. You'll hear from people who write emails. Click. Megan looked up from her coffee. She'd heard the tone in my voice from the other room. Warren? Yeah. Trying to scare me. Said I poached his staff? Did you? No, I left. They followed. There's a difference. She studied my face. You okay? I'm fine. He's bluffing. And even if he's not, I documented everything. Good. Then let him try. Here's the part nobody tells you about how things fall apart. It doesn't blow up. It just starts failing quietly. An email unanswered because nobody knows who handles that account. A shipment delayed because the backup route knowledge walked out the door. A client question bounced between 4 people, none of whom have the institutional knowledge to answer it. By Tuesday, I was getting messages from employees I hadn't spoken to in years. People staring at systems they didn't understand and problems they couldn't solve. The messages all had the same energy. Panic dressed as professional inquiry. Cole, nobody knows how the winter reroute protocol works. Warren is trying to reverse engineer it from your notes, but he's missing context. The carrier escalation chain isn't working. We've missed 3 priority deadlines, and clients are calling the executive line. Hartley's rep called screaming. Nobody knows their backup contact procedures. Warren told them to call back tomorrow. I didn't respond. I already knew what happens when you yank the spine out of a system built by people leadership never bothered to understand. Wednesday brought the first public client complaint. A manufacturing client posted on an industry forum about a delayed shipment Bridgewater couldn't explain. The new coordinator routed it through a carrier I'd specifically blacklisted after they'd failed us twice during winter conditions. The information was in my handoff documentation, highlighted even. The carrier missed the delivery window by 9 hours. A $37 million client sent a formal complaint to the executive team. $41,000 in penalty fees. That's when Warren made his first real mistake. Not the routing failure. That was incompetence. The mistake was who he put in charge of fixing it. The interim support coordinator. Someone from the analyst pool. Suddenly sitting in emergency planning meetings, making routing decisions, fielding client calls. Warren positioned it as temporary operational coverage. But everyone with eyes knew what it really was. The same analyst who'd been walking past his office for the past year. The one he'd been tracking with his eyes when he thought nobody was paying attention. Strategic operations analyst on paper. 18 months of tenure. 0 practical logistics experience. And now she was running crisis operations. People started talking. The staff who'd stayed were comparing notes. She showed up around 10 most mornings. Left by 4:30. Made real-time decisions that cost thousands per mistake. And Warren covered for every single one. The second disaster was worse because it was preventable. I documented an upcoming highway closure that would impact 3 major shipping corridors. Built alternate routes, coordinated with carriers, set up contingency protocols. The notes were clear, the solutions ready. All anyone had to do was follow the plan. She saw the notes, decided the alternate routes were inefficient, and sent trucks down the main highway anyway. They hit the construction zone and sat for 14 hours. 3 missed deliveries. $68,000 in combined penalties. When the operations team pushed back, when they tried to explain why the protocols existed, Warren shut them down. Sent a company-wide email praising her steady hand during transition challenges, while privately scrambling to contain the damage. By 9 calendar days after I left, 2 more coordinators quit. Both cited management concerns. Both had been with Bridgewater over 5 years. The third disaster came from Hartley. She sent an email to their logistics director that was meant to project confidence but revealed how little she understood their account. Got their shipping priorities backwards. Referenced protocols we didn't use. Made promises about capacity we couldn't deliver. The logistics director forwarded it to 3 people with one line. Who is this person, and why is she making decisions about our routing? That email reached Bridgewater's executive team within an hour. Client confidence was evaporating. Operations metrics were in freefall. The team was hemorrhaging talent, and Warren's solution was keeping the same unqualified person in place while hoping the bleeding would stop on its own. 12 calendar days after I left brought the hammer. Hartley terminated their contract. $28 million annual, gone. A second major client followed 3 days later. Suspended their contract pending operational review, then canceled outright. $31 million annual. The industry talks. When a major freight coordinator's operation implodes, everyone knows within 48 hours. Clients considering Bridgewater suddenly had serious concerns. Deals that were 90% closed fell apart. Competitors started circling. And the resignations kept coming. 15 calendar days after I left, another departure. Day 16, 2 more. Day 19, still bleeding. By the end of week 3, 9 key staff members had walked. The people who knew how things actually worked. Warren kept sending company-wide emails about perseverance and teamwork, and how the transition team was doing great work under challenging circumstances. Nobody believed him anymore. Not the staff, not the clients, not the board members asking pointed questions about what the heck was happening. The collapse wasn't dramatic. It was systematic. One missed deadline became 3 became 10. One lost client became 2 became 5. One resignation became 3 became 9. Somewhere in all that math, Bridgewater went from stable operation to company in crisis. All because Warren had spent 15 years prioritizing the wrong things. The second call came 3 weeks after Warren told me I wasn't leadership material. When I saw his name at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday, I knew exactly what it was. I'd been waiting for it, watching the collapse from a distance and wondering how long before panic overrode pride. I let it ring 3 times. Not out of spite. I just wanted him to feel every second of that weight. Warren. Cole. His voice had changed. Less controlled, more raw. The sound of a man who'd been fighting fires all week and was finally admitting he couldn't put them out. We need to talk. Okay? Silence. Like he'd expected me to fill the space or make this easier. I didn't. In person, I can come to you. Anywhere you want. Today, tomorrow, whenever works. Warren offering to come to me. Warren, who'd never left his office for anyone below executive level. Phone is fine. What do you need? He exhaled. We need you back, Cole. Operations are in crisis. Major clients are under review. Hartley terminated. We're bleeding clients and I can't. He stopped himself. Regrouped. The board wants to reinstate your VP promotion. Immediately. Paperwork ready by Monday. I didn't respond. And we'll adjust the compensation package. Significant increase over what we discussed. Equity options, performance bonuses. Whatever you were making at Apex, we'll beat it by 20%. 20%. 3 weeks ago, I wasn't executive material. Now he had 20% more than a competitor's salary just lying around. We'll also restructure your authority. Complete operational control. No oversight. You'd report directly to the board, not through my office. Final say on all regional decisions. The promotion he'd dangled for 2 years. The salary he'd claimed didn't exist. The authority he'd spent 15 years making sure I never had. All of it, right now, just come back and fix what we broke. Warren, I sent you a detailed transition memo 2 weeks ago. Did you read it? Pause. We reviewed it, but did you reach out about the consulting offer? $450 an hour for transition assistance? That was in the memo too. Cole, we don't need a consultant. We need you. Back in your role, leading the team. I don't have a role there anymore. I resigned. I'm VP at Apex now. Then we'll match your title. Full Vice President, Operations. Not coordinator, not regional lead. The real position. The one you should have had years ago. Should have had years ago. He actually said it. If I should have had it years ago, why didn't I? Silence. The heavy kind that tells you someone just walked into a trap they set themselves. Things are different now. The situation has changed. You mean you need me now? That's what changed. 3 weeks ago you had me and didn't want to pay for it. Now you don't have me and you'll pay anything. That's not a change in my value, Warren. That's just you finally understanding what it was worth all along. Cole, please, let's talk about this. 30 days. Come back for 30 days. Help us stabilize. Train the new coordinators. After that, if you still want to leave, we'll work out a transition that makes sense. 30 days. Get me back in the building. Bury me in emergencies. Let guilt and obligation do their work. 30 days becomes 60, becomes permanent. I'm not interested in coming back, Warren. Not for 30 days, not for any amount of money. I'm building something at Apex. Something that actually values the work I do. The interim team is being restructured. We're bringing in experienced coordinators. People who actually know the systems. You wouldn't have to deal with any of the transition chaos. Interim team. Not her specifically. Just vague enough to sound like a business decision, while still admitting his solution had failed spectacularly. That's an internal staffing decision, Warren. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with... He stopped. Look, I know I made mistakes. I know the timing was bad. I know I should have handled your promotion differently. But we can fix this. We can make it right. No, you can't make it right. You can make it profitable for me, maybe. You can make it expensive for you, definitely. But you can't make it right. That opportunity closed 3 weeks ago when you told me I wasn't leadership material. Cole, I sent you the transition memo. I offered consulting at a fair rate. You have options for moving forward. They just don't include me coming back. The board is asking questions about the departures, about the contracts. They're bringing in auditors. They're going to want to know why this happened. What I'm going to tell them. I felt something cold settle in my chest. He was trying to make his investigation sound like my problem. Tell them the truth. Tell them you had 15 years to promote the people who built your stability, and you chose not to. Tell them you prioritized other things. Tell them whatever you want, Warren. I've got nothing to hide. I didn't mean, that's not what I meant. I know what you meant. And the answer is still no. Good luck with the transition. I hung up before he could respond. Megan texted that night. You okay? Yeah. Warren called, offered me everything. Turned it down. Good. You deserve better than everything from people who should have given you something when it mattered. She was right, as always. What I didn't know during that call was that Bridgewater's board had already started asking the questions Warren was afraid of. When you lose nearly $60 million in contracts in 3 weeks, boards get curious. When 9 key employees resign in the same period, they get investigative. The company brought in outside auditors the day after Warren called. Standard crisis response. They were looking for operational failures, process breakdowns, anything that could explain the collapse. What they found was a pattern. Warren had been making staffing and promotion decisions that didn't align with performance metrics. Projects assigned to unqualified people. High performers passed over. Resources allocated in ways that made no operational sense. When they started looking at email records, they found communication patterns that raised immediate red flags. Nothing I sent them. Nothing I leaked. Just standard corporate due diligence uncovering what happens when people get sloppy with company systems. The board's legal team got involved. HR launched a formal investigation. The kind that happens when a company is trying to understand if leadership decisions were made for business reasons or personal ones. I found out about all of this later. From people still at Bridgewater watching the fallout. 4 weeks after Warren told me I wasn't leadership material, Bridgewater's HR called and asked if I'd participate in an exit interview. Standard procedure, they said. Just trying to understand the recent departures. I almost said no. But something made me agree. The interview was conducted by an outside firm, not Bridgewater's internal HR. That told me everything about how serious this had gotten. The interviewer was professional, thorough, asked good questions about my decision to leave. Most of it was standard. Compensation, work environment, relationship with management. Then she asked about the VP promotion. I kept it factual. Told her about the 2-year timeline, the repeated delays, the meeting where Warren said the position was paused. I mentioned the calendar invite he'd sent 3 weeks prior titled VP Transition Planning, and how that didn't align with his claim that the board had paused expansion. Then she asked if I had any concerns about decision-making processes at Bridgewater. I thought about the analyst showing up late, leaving early, producing little of substance, somehow being protected. About Warren's eyes tracking her past his glass door. About her being shoved into my role despite zero operational experience, then watching Warren defend her while the company bled money. About 15 years of decisions that made no business sense. You should review conflicts of interest in staffing and promotion decisions, I said carefully, particularly around the VP role and subsequent interim operational assignments. That was it. One line. No accusations, no details, no drama. Just a professional observation any competent investigator would follow up on. The interviewer made a note, thanked me for my time. The call ended. I went back to work at Apex and didn't think much about it. 2 weeks later, Warren was terminated. Not quietly resigned, not gracefully transitioned, terminated for cause. The official statement cited conduct inconsistent with company values and fiduciary responsibilities. Industry insiders filled in the blanks. The investigation had uncovered a relationship. The interim coordinator shoved into operations? Her name was Maya. She'd been hired as a strategic operations analyst 18 months earlier, and the audit trail showed a pattern of preferential treatment from day one. Email chains where Warren discussed her career advancement, including explicit references to planning a promotion once he could manufacture enough credentials to make it defensible. Calendar patterns showing private meetings that had nothing to do with company business. Expense reports that raised questions. Communication records that made the relationship undeniable. The emails where Warren called me a placeholder. The accelerated project assignments that made no operational sense. Everything that proved his decisions weren't about business. Maya was gone the same day. Her position eliminated, and nobody seemed too broken up about it. Last I heard, she was explaining the gap in her resume to recruiters who'd already heard the story. Freight logistics is a small world. Word travels fast. Warren tried to fight the termination, made noise about wrongful dismissal. The board's lawyers responded with a detailed summary of everything they'd found. He dropped the lawsuit within a week. Smart move, the only one he'd made in years. His wife filed for divorce 3 weeks later. She had apparently hired her own investigators once the company audit started making headlines. Turns out boards aren't the only ones who care about documentation. Guess I wasn't leadership material, but at least I kept my job. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.